Everybody ready to start? I'd like to welcome everybody to this joint meeting of the House and Senate Reapportionment Committee. This is going to be a public hearing to take input from all of y'all who want to speak to this joint committee and tell us how you feel your districts in your area should be redrawn. I'm Roger Lane, and I'm chairman of the House Reapportionment Committee, Georgia House Reapportionment Committee. To my left is Matt Ramsey, who is vice chairman of the committee, and Doug McKillop, who is secretary to the committee. And they may want to introduce themselves a little more after a while. Thank all of y'all for being here. Usually when we as legislators meet with constituents, we do all the talking, most of the talking. We like to, y'all like to hear from us. But today, this is going to be a different kind of meeting. Y'all are going to do the talking today. You're going to give us input into how you feel about redistricting and how we should be going about this. Then after we get all these, we got 12 of these scheduled around the state, and when we get all the data put together, then our committees will start meeting and start drawing districts, and this information will be part of the database that we have to draw those districts. Senator Mitch Seabaugh is chairman of the Senate Reapportionment Committee, and he might want to introduce his officers of his committee at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I'm Mitch Seabaugh from Noonan, Georgia, and I am the chairman of the Senate Reapportionment Redistricting Committee. Next to me is Senator Bill Cowsert, who's the vice chair, and next to him is Senator Charlie Bethel from up in northwest Georgia, and he is our secretary.
Okay. Thank you, Senator. We also have other members of the joint committees here from the House and the Senate, and at this time we'd like them to introduce themselves and kind of tell us thank you, and kind of tell us what area of the state they represent. And we'll start with my vice chairman and secretary, and then the senators, and then we'll go down here to the members of the House and the Senate to introduce yourselves.
I'm Matt Ramsey. I'm from Peachtree City, Georgia, just south of Atlanta.
Doug McKillop from District 115 here in Athens. I want to take the opportunity to welcome all of the members of the committee to Athens and look forward to everyone's input.
I'm Bill Cowsert from here. I hope most of you know me or at least heard of me. And this is.
I'm Charlie Bethel. I'm from Dalton, and I represent all of Whitfield and Murray counties as well as portions of Catoosa and Gordon.
I'm Steve Henson. I represent Lilburn and Gwinnett, and in DeKalb County, Stone Mountain, Tucker area.
I'm Robert Brown, and I represent the Macon area, District 26. And while I'm standing, I want to register a protest against the way that this has been organized. We, as the Democratic Party, had no input into the locations of these meetings, nor do we have any input into the process.
Next.
Tom Dixon. I represent parts of Whitfield, Murray, and Catoosa counties.
Ed Reinders. I represent parts of Lee, Dougherty, Worth, and Coffee County in beautiful southwest Georgia.
I'm Sean Jurgensen, and I'm from Cherokee County.
I'm Barbara Reese, and I represent Fisher County and a large portion of Florida County on the Alabama line in northwest Georgia. And I am a Georgia graduate, and it's good being on.
John Gates, my district 73, I live in Farley County. Also have part of Fayette County and part of Henry County.
I'm Willie Powell from District 145, and I represent Colorado. I'm Mr. Stevens. I represent 151 and Savannah, Georgia.
I'm Henry Wayne Howard. I represent
Matt Jackson, representing District 142, includes Washington County, Jefferson County, Portsmouth, Johnson, and Emmanuel County.
I'm Ron Bell. I represent House District 91, DeKalb, and Henry County. Richard Smith, I represent House District 131, which is part of
I'm Ronnie Chance. I represent the 16th Senate District, which is just south of Metro Atlanta.
Ed Harbison from Columbus, Georgia, 15th District.
Don Balfour, Gwinnett County, State Senate. Police Miller, Hall County, Jackson County, west of I-85.
I'm Senator Frank Young, and I represent here like Bill Telford, so it's great to be at home and good to be looking forward to it.
And I was handed a note to remind the legislators that if you haven't signed in, you need to sign in with us so we got a record that you were here at the meeting besides the videotape. And any members of the audience who want to speak to us who haven't signed in yet, you can still sign in at the back and they'll get that to us and we'll be glad to get you into the program. A little bit of background, as most of y'all know, you've been through this probably before, a lot of you. Every 10 years we have a census done by the federal government, and based upon that population count that the census determines, then the states have to go about redrawing all their districts in the state that are based upon population. And in Georgia, that means we have to redraw every 10 years, and that's what we're getting in the process of doing now. I've been working on to redraw the state house districts, the state senate districts, and the congressional districts, and also the Public Service Commission. They have five districts that they run from, and all those districts have to be redrawn after the census to get us in compliance with one person, one vote, so that each district is as close to the same population as is practical to make them. So that's what we'll be doing. One thing our committee does not do, we do not redraw the county commission districts, the school board districts, or the city commissioner districts. That's done by the local folks in conjunction with the state reapportionment office, but our committee has nothing to do with that, so we can't make decisions on how those lines are drawn, but we do all the other lines. We do have a number of people who signed up, and we want to hear from all of you. And in order to do that, we will have to put some time limits on how long you're going to be able to speak. And we've determined that in order to give everybody an opportunity to speak during this hearing, we're going to limit you to 3 minutes each. That doesn't mean you have to use the 3 minutes, but I suspect that most of you will. But the time limit is going to be 3 minutes. We're also videotaping these hearings and preserving that as a record of what we have heard and what we've been doing around the state. We've got 12 of these scheduled, and we're going to preserve those videotapes. They also will be on the internet, available on the internet to everybody through the Georgia General Assembly website, so that anybody who wants to see what went on at another meeting will have that access to them. So at this time, we're going to start the process. We're going to call two speakers at a time, have one at the microphone and one ready to go, and then we'll keep moving through like that, see how that works. Anybody have anything else they need to say before? Be sure when you speak to us that you give us your name and where you're from, and you can submit any information you want to us in addition to whatever your comments are here. And if you're speaking on behalf of an organization, it's okay to tell us who that is. So with that, we'll start and start listening to your concerns. The first speaker is Lynn Irwin Brown, and Johnny Brown will be next up after her.
Thank you very much. Just for the record, I will give you a packet of 28 pages. Some of it is, oh, I'm sorry, I'm Lynn Irwin Brown. I'm from North Rockdale, which is House District 95. Rockdale County has a unique aptitude of being divided into 4 House districts: 95th, 94th, 93rd, 92nd. Unfortunately, mostly we are overshadowed by the strength of DeKalb County, and it's an urban area, whereas North Rockdale and South Rockdale each are a very rural area still. The land use maps, I have comprehensive land use maps off everyone's websites for Henry County, Walton County, Newton County, and Rockdale County. This will show that in our North Rockdale County and our southernmost part of Rockdale County will never be highly developed at all due to the amount of bedrock and the soils that we have in our area. So therefore, we are more alike Henry County, which adjoins us at the south, and at the north, we're more alike Walton County and part of Newton County. We feel that it would be in our best interest to be considered in those areas. We are agricultural and farm. We're definitely more in sync. I have several photos here for you to look at your leisure when you are in committee, showing the differences of large acre tract land that we have in North Rockdale and in South Rockdale versus what's just over the line in Gwinnett County, DeKalb County. And again, I know you're busy. All of them have legends of the comprehensive land use maps, so you can see the lighter the color in the map shows the least amount of populated areas. And I have an exact duplicate in my office at home. If anything comes up missing, please let me know. I can resubmit it. And again, just please consider one person, one vote. We have not had that in 10 years in Rockdale County. We've been treated poorly. We need some representation. We want to be grouped with light, kind, populated areas, not big urban areas. We need a voice, and we need to be heard now. Please help us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, and for those here, we do have a timer, non-biased timer over here, who would tell us when the 3 minutes is up. Keep us from having to do that. Next would be Johnny Brown.
My name's Johnny Brown. I live in North Rockdale County. I live in the Bethel District, or Bethel Precinct. As my wife said, we're lumped in with DeKalb and Gwinnett counties. We have not been represented for the past 10 years, we feel like. The main reason is North Rockdale County and the south end of the county is still rural farmland. The people I have sitting here with me, are all farmers. Mr. Tom Smith right here at the end, he cuts thousands of bales of hay every year off his farm in Rockdale County, as do I. The Crabs here, Dave and Marilyn Crab, they raise horses on their farms. They own a large feed store in the south end of Rockdale County called the Stock Market, where they sell just trailer loads of hay that's brought in from out of state because they can't get enough from local distributors. We are basically, as I said, rural AR, agricultural residential, or watershed protection areas. Our zoning is. The watershed protection area can only have one house per 3 acres. Can't be any subdivisions built in it that are that take up more housing per acres than that. We need to be either put in a district with Walton County or Newton County, which is still farmland. Both ends of those counties are still rural, as we are, and basically we have nothing in common with DeKalb County because we don't even have one shopping center in the 3 precincts we're in. We don't have any apartment complexes in the 3 precincts. We are, as I said, just still basically rural farmland area. If you can consider putting us with one of those counties, we'd greatly appreciate it. Would you like this now, the pictures, or when would you like them? Thank you for your time.
Next be Ed Tracy. And then next in the line, that will be Don Williamson after Mr. Tracy. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, committee, my name is Edward C. Tracy. I'm resident of Rockdale County for the past 12 years. You can see we're well represented here today because we feel underrepresented because the basic issue is Rockdale County 10 years ago was cut up like strips of bacon. We're the second smallest geographic county in the state of Georgia, yet we have 4 state representatives representing us. We now are in the over 80,000 category as of this year, and but most of our population lives in either South or North Rockdale and rural areas. We just feel like the other speakers that we need representation more in line with Newton or Walton like communities. Commercially, we don't feel like we're represented business-wise. Also, every time there's a vote and a representative from DeKalb County, where our state senator, 3 representatives out of 4 are from DeKalb, 2/3 of their vote comes from DeKalb County and 1/3 from Rockdale. Basically, we were watered down 10 years ago. And we feel we're big enough to have a representative and a half or a quarter represent Rockdale County so we can have a voice, or to be included with Newton or Henry County, not Henry, but Walton County, excuse me. I videotaped a meeting that League of Women Voters had at our last meeting that we had in Rockdale County, and I want to be able to submit that to the record. The League has a copy of it, and they were going to try and submit it for the record. People that can't come all the way to Athens, we had a very large crowd there. Majority of that crowd was from Rockdale County, and they all pretty much said the same thing that we're saying. And I've videotaped these meetings as well on my website, edwardctracy.com, and they're there for your review. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tracy. I think we have some other legislators who have arrived. You want to introduce yourself, Matt? You want to introduce yourself and tell us what area you represent? Anybody else who? Hey, Carolyn, good to see you. Okay. Missed you earlier, I think. Okay. Anybody else? Thank you. Mr. Williamson.
Good afternoon. If you're not tired of Rockdale yet, I'm Don Williamson from the Rockdale County Republican Party. As has already been mentioned by some of our other residents, Rockdale County is the second smallest county in Georgia, and we're, I think, 17th in population at the moment. And I have submitted this package, and I'm sure you've seen it before, but that is the representation of the Johnny Isaacson versus Marshall vote in 2010, and Rockdale is completely encompassed in blue for that part right there. But that was done by county, per county. The way our county actually votes is this way. Both the north and the south are strong Republican districts and areas, as well as the southern part of Walton County, the northern part of Newton County, and the northern part of Henry County that comes up to our south. Now, I have been told by the current Chief of Staff for Rockdale County, Greg Pridgeon, that Rockdale County should be considered a blue county from this point on, because in 2008, 2 out of 3 of our commission seats were won by Democrats, thereby giving them the majority. In 2010, our lone Republican was reelected by 1,500 votes, and all of these are at-large positions. So we didn't sprinkle magic dust on the Democrats that were there to vote for us. We're simply showing that we are a 50-50 mix, if not slightly more conservative, and our district line should show that in our representation in both the State House and in the State Senate. One person I would like to make sure that stays within the county is our current Senator Rick Jeffries. He has done wonders, and he has helped us through some of the battles that we are going through now, along with some battles coming up on water problems that we'll be facing from DeKalb County. So, what I would like to see come from the Reapportionment Committee when the lines are drawn is that we are not part of DeKalb County any longer. Our lines are really, we're more aligned with our neighbors to the east of us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate you being here. Next will be Leonard Walgenall. You can tell me if I got that right. Walgamot. Okay, you didn't cross your T's on the first part.
Chairman,
Little curveball you threw me there.
It is Leonard Walgamot, like a wall. And my wife and I have some property and a home in Taliaferro County. And been out there about 3 years, met a number of folks. Seem to be quite conservative, a lot of the area. And I would just ask that the committee would consider maybe dropping the line across Interstate 20 in Taliaferro County and put it in the Congressional District 10, represented by Paul Brown. And I kind of came here to more or less get information on how to move the consideration towards that in some way. I don't know if y'all can answer questions now or not. No?
No.
Okay.
But we will be having further hearings once we get through this process, when we start actually drawing maps. So, and those are certainly open to the public, and you can have input and questions, dialogue in that process once we get through this, getting public input.
Okay. I just appreciate y'all's consideration in moving that line.
Appreciate you being here.
I really don't feel a lot of folks there getting represented properly from the 12th district.
Okay. Next will be Melvin Davis, and then on deck will be Don Meyer.
Representative Lane, Senator Seabaugh, thanks to each of you and for being here today. I want to thank all of the members of the House and Senate that's here. I think that is impressive that they're here to listen, and I appreciate them being here today. My name is Melvin Davis, and I'm Chairman of the Board of Commissioners in Oconee County. And again, I want to thank you for holding this particular public hearing here in this area of the state. You know, you have a unique and you have a difficult position that's facing you as you look at the congressional, senatorial, state house districts for the future. The task in front of you is awesome. I commend you for your work. Now to Oconee County. Oconee County has a population now of 32,808 citizens. We've enjoyed having one senator and we've enjoyed having one House member represent our county for the last several years. Senator Cowser, you've done a good job. Representative Huckabee has also done a good job. We like this arrangement. It works well for Oconee County. In past, we've had more than one senator or more than one House representative, House member of representatives to represent the county. That's caused some issues. Issues such as increased cost in elections because you have to print more ballots of a different nature, and that causes issues with county budgets. Also, I think in past, I won't call names, but we've had issues with consensus among our representatives and our senators. But we're again pleased with and satisfied with our current arrangement. We would prefer to remain whole. We want to remain intact and not divided into two or more senatorial or House districts. We're currently combined with portions of adjoining counties, and we are generally similar jurisdictions, and that's good for our region. Thanks again for listening. I'll be happy to make myself available to answer any questions and provide any input at a future date. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you for being here. Don Meyer.
My name is Don Meyer, and I'm also from Rockdale County. I'm the president of the South Rockdale Civic Association, the only civic association we have in Rockdale County. And quite frankly, I'm going to speak to the South Side. I held one of the largest community meetings the county's ever seen with all my public officials in January. And quite candidly, we are not like the central portion of Rockdale. Our southern half is very rural. My mother-in-law lives on a 45-acre estate. There are a lot of larger tracts of homes down there. Time will tell what happens to the south end, but right now we would be more inclined to be aligned with northern Henry County or something of that sort for our representation. We're not like central Rockdale County. Central Rockdale County has, out of the 27 cities reporting to the federal crime statistics, has their 10th and 13th in violent and nonviolent crime. We're rural down there. We don't have aspirations like the city of Conyers does in central Rockdale. They have a 67% renter to owner-occupied dwellings. That's not us. The city of Conyers has a 67% renter ratio to homeowners. So we're not like those folks at all. So we would like very strongly to ask you to consider that the southern portion of Rockdale County be more aligned to northern Henry County or portions thereof. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. Eleanor Davis. And then on deck will be Sandy Folsom.
Good evening. I'm T. Eleanor Davis. I'm here to speak about Rockdale County. I do believe that we need proper representation that reflects our county. I moved out to South Rockdale in 1974, and it is a rural area, just as the northern area is, and neither one will ever be developed into an urban area because of the topography issues and lack of infrastructure. We need representation with like folks, which are South Henry County and over towards Newton County, and then the northern part of Rockdale needs representation more with Walton, Gwinnett, those areas. We do not need to be associated with the urban issues because we have rural issues that we're dealing with. One of my concerns is our reservoir and protecting our water. And as you know, we have water issues in Georgia. And there have been over the years, and I'm quite familiar with riparian rights, former president of the Georgia International Right-of-Way the International Right-of-Way Association Georgia chapter, and International Right-of-Way Association International Director, so I'm quite familiar with riparian rights. And I've worked with ARC over the years, and I've served on various governors' task forces regarding environmental issues over the years, and dealing with the water issues in particular. And what I see is with our regional water issues and the regional laws that are being passed and that need to be passed, and the issues that we're dealing with, we need to be associated with folks that are dealing with those same issues, not urban issues, urban people that are dealing with needing water, that don't have reservoirs and don't understand what we've done and what we've given up and committed in tax dollars and strategy and planning to have our water systems. So I would ask you to please consider that as one of the many issues that are on the table that make us more aligned with our folks to the north and to the east and to the south rather than to the west. Thank you.
Thank you. We have another House member present. You want to introduce yourself and tell us where you're from, who you represent? Thanks for being here. Anybody else who has come in since? That's the only one. Okay. Sandy Folsom.
Gentlemen, thank you for the opportunity to present our opinions and concerns regarding the redrawing of the lines. My husband was raised in Henry County and moved in with me when we married to DeKalb County. We relocated to Rockdale County, just outside of Conyers, to escape the congestion and the noise of the city, to allow us to have animals and farm, that I've never done because I'm a city girl, to relocate for gardening and outdoor fun. Well, shortly after moving to our home in Rockdale, the district lines were redrawn in 2000, and we were included with DeKalb and Gwinnett County, which reflects the lifestyle and concerns of urban population and does not reflect the lifestyle and concerns of our community. We respectfully request that you consider the differences of our community and include us with other communities with similar values and lifestyles when redrawing the district lines, so that we will have an opportunity for fair representation with our Georgia representatives. Thank you for your consideration in this matter. And I'll leave some photos that I have with this gentleman. Thank you.
Thank you. Next will be Lee Becker, and on deck will be John Paget. Okay. Is that Mr. Becker? Okay.
Yes, I'm Lee Becker. I live in Oconee County, and as Chairman Davis has already noted, all of Oconee County is in the 113th House District and the 46th Senate District, represented by Mr. Cowsert. I've lived in the county for 14 years. Most of those years, the county has been in a single district, and my request is that as the districts are redrawn, that you respect the unique characteristics of Oconee County and the other counties, and concern yourself more with the needs of the county than with the needs of elected officials who might prefer to create a district that's more compatible with their reelection. Thank you.
John Olive and Burt Richmond will be on deck.
Thank you for this opportunity to address the Commission. I live in southeast Clark County. I've lived there for 25 years. I'm a member of the University of Georgia community. We are split into 3 House districts and now 2 Senate districts. And I feel in that regard I've been disenfranchised. My House district is now part of a very large rural area. The gentleman from Oconee County was glad to have just 1 Senate representative. I now have 2. It seems to me that it was a deliberate attempt by the Republican Party to dilute the urban Clark County voters, which have been historically Clark County a Democratic enclave surrounded by Republican rural districts. I feel disenfranchised, and I would like my vote back. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Richmond.
I'm Bert Richmond from Athens, Clark County. I was teaching here at the University of Georgia when Louise McBee was Dean of Women, so I understand those of you who still think of her fondly. I don't need to remind the committee that Athens, Clark County is a rather unusual and unique community in its emphasis on education. The University of Georgia, now the new medical school, which is in operation. Piedmont College is here. We have a number of teachers in public and private education. And in addition to that, we have a large minority population. So we're distinctly a democratic community. And I know that the House of Representatives and the Senate as well intend to represent the people of Georgia and these distinct, unique kinds of communities that we have. And I would like to echo what Dr. Olive has said, that Athens, Clark County certainly is unique, distinct, large enough to have its own Senate district in Georgia. And I believe that we're large enough to have two largely Athens, Clark County districts for the House of Representatives. So I think we have some unique characteristics here, and we would certainly like to be represented in Atlanta. Thank you.
Thank you. Larry Denny. And on deck will be Doc Eldridge. Y'all correct me if I mispronounce something.
Good afternoon. My name is Larry Dendy. I live in the eastern part of Clark County near the small town of Winterville. I live in a small sliver of Clark County that's part of House District 113 and Senate District 47. Most of Clark County is not in House District 113. It's in House Districts 114 and 115, and the representatives from those districts live in Clark County. Most of Clark County is not in Senate District 47. It's in District 46 and is represented by a man who lives in Clark County, Senator Calsert. House District 13 and 113, in which I live, is primarily Oconee County and a portion of Morgan County. The man who represents that district lived in Oconee County. Senate District 47, in which I live, includes Jackson, Barrow, Elbert, Madison, and Oglethorpe counties, and the senator lives in Elbert County. But I can assure you that I, and I believe most of those who live in my district, have our strongest bonds with Clark County. The majority of us work in Clark County, shop in Clark County, go to church in Clark County, send our children to Clark County schools. We vote in Clark County, we pay taxes in Clark County. But realistically, we do not have the opportunity to be represented in the General Assembly by a fellow citizen of Clark County, someone who might be our neighbor, who is familiar with our neighborhoods, who understands our concerns and our problems and will be an advocate for our needs. In short, someone who shares our interest. Now, there's no mystery why this situation exists. The politicians tacked this little portion of Clark County onto House District 113 and Senate District 47 to make the numbers work for a political scheme. Those of us who live here had no say in this. We were not consulted or given an opportunity to object. We really essentially were a political convenience. This little piece of eastern Clark County clearly was cobbled onto House District 113 and Senate District 47 for political expediency. But I want to remind you that those of us who live here are not numbers. We are citizens. We are not cogs in a situation in which we can arbitrarily be juggled and arranged to fulfill political goals.
We adhere to the democratic process and believe everyone has the right to fair and equal representation. So as you move forward with this reapportionment process, I hope you'll remember this little example of those of us in Clark County who are in House District 113 and Senate District 47. This is gerrymandering at its worst. I urge you to ensure that illogical, inequitable alignment such as this does not occur, and that there are new districts created without political favor, but with the goal of providing citizens what they deserve, the best representation based on the principles of fairness, equity, citizen input, and compatible community interest. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Eldridge.
My name is Doc Eldridge. I reside at 340 Westlake Drive in Athens. I too want to thank you for coming out here for the first hearing of these state public hearings. And sort of what, like Mr. Dendy said, and sort of like what Chairman Davis said, now there's an old saying that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I understand you're going to have to do some moving around in the numbers. Quite frankly, I think we've got a good delegation. I think we've got reasonably good lines that we know are going to have to take. You're going to have to shift some lines to get within the population requirements of the new census. But I do think that while we have gone to 2 senators and we've got 3 state representatives, they've done a good job, and I think as a whole they have represented the balance and the best interest of the citizens of our region. That would be Athens and Oconee. As the region goes, we all develop and prosper. We are encouraged by a lot of regional efforts that are taking place with our friends in Oconee County and other neighboring counties as well. So I would hope that you wouldn't mess it up too bad and start giving us a look and a map that we're not comfortable with and not familiar with. Again, I know you're going to have to do some moving around because of the population shifts. I think there's some communities of interest within the existing boundaries that you can make some adjustments to meet the requirements of the census. On the congressional map, I would encourage you to look at I call it the RDC, I think it's called the Regional Commission. It's a 12-county, 54-municipality area that is more confined to a community of interest in our region of the state. The numbers, we are in that district for a reason. We have a good, strong community of interest. We are also in the same region that we are voting on our district transportation needs. And when you look at that map, I would encourage you to look at the 12 counties that comprise the regional commission for our congressional district. No one particular county will dominate that congressional seat. It's a good mix of populations and geographies around the state. Again, I thank you for your time and appreciate your efforts.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Edwards and Ms. Kidd, be on deck.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak about redistricting. I would just like to offer some recommendations. Russell Edwards from Athens, Georgia. Thank you. I would like to offer the committee some recommendations. First of all, I think that it would be good to put out a little bit more notice for these hearings. I know here in Athens we heard about it maybe with a week's notice. This is a very active community. As you see, we basically filled up this enormous chapel in 7 days. But I know that people would like to get more notice when it comes to these hearings. Second of all, I think that the last thing we want right now in Georgia is a lengthy court battle over the redrawing of these districts. With that in mind, I would argue that it's always best to put out the appearance of nonpartisanship. Y'all can do what you do when you go back to Atlanta, but when you go out in Georgia, it doesn't look very nonpartisan if you're all up on stage, all Republicans. I mean, what harm would it do to have Senator Brown up there and give him the dignity to be on stage with you? Y'all can do whatever you want when you go back to Atlanta, but at least give the appearance to the people that this is a nonpartisan practice. So, thanks again.
And next, Jane. All right, this is not a sporting contest, so let's hold it down as much as we can, okay? We appreciate it. Former
Hi.
Representative Jane Kidd.
I'm Jane Kidd from Athens, Clarke County, and I wanted to welcome all the legislators who are here, some of good friends and good colleagues and people I enjoyed working with. I think I was the last Democrat elected to 115. Seems that we don't have a Democrat elected in 115 anymore like we voted for when we voted last. I do think I want to reiterate that I think Russell Edwards is right. We didn't get enough notice. I mean, sometimes it's good to be first, but when you're first and you only get less than 10 days notice of a meeting, I don't think that's adequate. And our community would be more here. We have fortunate to have some Rockdale County, a lot of Rockdale County people here tonight, but we would have more if we had had more notice. As other speakers have said, Athens, Clarke County is a very homogeneous county. So alike in our values that over 2 decades ago we decided to be a consolidated county city. And so I think it's a real indicator, a strong indicator that we want to stay together, be represented together. If we can stick to at least just 2 House representatives, I think that would be the best possible scenario for Athens, Clarke County. But in the Senate, as you know, the Senate district was redistricted in a mid-census redistricting to make it more, 46 be more Republican. And I don't, obviously the values of redistricting say that they should not be done for political reasons and that it should look into communities of interest. There are lots of, the District 47 Senate district is the worst abuse of dividing up communities of interest, and you had Larry Dendy speak to that point. But I also wanted to say that District 47 is not reflective of our community, and we are big enough that we could have 1 Senate district, and that would be strong. A lot of people have said they'd rather have one Senate district. When the redistricting was done, there were arguments made that it would be better for the University of Georgia and for the Athens, Clarke County community to have more senators. But as you have heard tonight, most communities like to be represented by 1 instead of 2. And I'd be interested in knowing how the University of Georgia feels about how that's working out, having more than 1 senator. Paul Brown did a great job for many, many years representing the state of Georgia. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm glad you're here. I wish we'd had more notice. I think there are some really important factors that you've got to consider. I hope you'll be fair and transparent.
Thank you. Next be Joel Logan, and on deck, William Perry.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Joel Logan. I live in Commerce, Georgia, in Jackson County. And I'm also the GIS manager for Jackson County. So I'm doing a lot of local reapportionment maps right now for Jackson. So I definitely understand the magnitude of what the committee's going through. It's a hard task. What I'd like to address you about tonight, our county, we've had the notoriety. We go back and forth with one other county about having the most combo districts, is what they're called, in the state of Georgia. And we've been one of the fastest growing counties in the nation for 10 years. But currently what I'd like to ask consideration for is we're divided both in the House and the Senate different districts. And if you would consider having Jackson County as a whole for either the State House or the Senate. As Oconee County was speaking before, it raises the cost of ordering ballots tremendously when you're split into multiple districts, and as far as staff time, entering in all the combination differences is very difficult. But if you'd give us consideration, we sure would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Mr. Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is William Perry, work for the organization Common Cause Georgia, and I'm here representing a coalition of groups called the Georgia Redistricting Alliance. We've explained our principles to you all before, and I will certainly submit them for the public record. But I think I want to point out that our main goal is to see that this process is done without consideration of political parties. There's no stronger example than when you look at the Senate elections from last year. 33 of 56 Senate districts in the state of Georgia had no opposition in the general election. There was only one name on the ballot. If you look at an election where there was less than 60% of the vote that went to one candidate, in other words, a 20-point spread, the number of districts goes up to 54 out of 56 districts. There are only 2 districts, state Senate districts in the state of Georgia, that were competitive, if your competitive standard is 59% of the vote or less, which is not very competitive. There's no greater example that those districts are drawn for both parties. So we would like political parties to be taken out. Governor Perdue assembled a blue ribbon task force several years back, and the recommendation of that task force, group, after a lot of hard work, was that the state of Georgia create an independent citizens commission to redraw these districts. And unfortunately, that recommendation has been completely ignored by the legislature. We hope that you'll consider taking that up again after this process is over. I want to commend the members of the House, because even though there's only a week notice, I understand that of the 12 meetings around the state, the House took on 6, the Senate took on 6. The 6 House hearings that are happening in May and June have the locations announced. Unfortunately, as of today, one for next week in Albany on Monday, no location has been announced. We'll be less than 7 days away from a state hearing without any idea of where it's going to be held in the city of Albany. And I think that there needs to be a better job done on that in terms of notification. I do want to commend the number of elected officials and members of the General Assembly that have come out, as well as their staffs, but I would just be curious to have a show of hands of how many people are in the room that don't work for a member of the General Assembly, who are of commission, or who are just citizens that came out here today. That's a pretty strong showing. I do want to commend that my friends from Rockdale County are doing a great job representing their point, and I don't want to discard that, but I'm also curious how many people are not from Rockdale County, because I know y'all brought quite a group. So about half of the room is local. With that, I think that the point is made that we could do a better job of publicizing and letting the citizens of Georgia know about these hearings. And I hope with the Senate, as soon as you can please announce the location so we can begin publicizing committees around the rest of the state. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks for being here. Next will be Senator Robert Brown, and on deck will be Mark Farmer.
Thank you. Members of the committee, I'll be very brief. I simply want to ask that the committee hearing locations be extended to include some distinctly rural areas of the state.
Thank you for being brief.
Do I get his time? My name is Mark Farmer. My family and I have lived in Clark County since 1989. Specifically, I live in the city of Winterville, where I, since 2005, have had the honor of serving on the city council in Winterville. We serve in a nonpartisan, so I'm not here representing any political party. I'm simply representing myself. That being said, I too remember feeling disenfranchised when Athens-Clark County was separated into 2 Senate districts. Both my neighbors and myself, everyone in Winterville really works and lives and is invested in this community. By that, I mean the greater Athens area. And with all due respect to my current senator, Mr. Ginn, who I think represents us well, it did feel disenfranchising when, especially Winterville, which is that little bit of a circle in 113 up in the northeast corner of Athens, Clarke County. It's easy to spot us here, feeling a little bit separated. And I'm also concerned, I think, as many people are, that the line that currently divides Athens not be carried over when we talk about congressional districts. Many of us remember in 2007 when a congressional candidate for what was then a vacant seat, referred to the University of Georgia as the most appropriate thing would be to bomb it except for Sanford Stadium. Those of us who love this community, who love the University of Georgia, who have given our lives to making it a better place, certainly don't want to see Athens, Clarke County divided between two congressional districts, perhaps with two individuals who have similar sentiments about our fine university and our fine town. Thank you.
Thank you. Madeline Powell, and on deck be Ivan Sumner.
My name is Madeline Powell. I'm from here in Athens, Georgia. Proud participant in the electoral process for most of my life. And I have a few questions for the record. I would like to know why during this cycle of redistricting the job was contracted out to the Republican Party's attorney to take care of, as opposed to being handled by the University of Georgia, which historically has been the case. I'm deeply concerned that our community of interest, which it lies within the boundaries of Athens, Clarke County, was torn apart deliberately to the personal benefit of the brother-in-law of one office holder at the time, who currently sits as Secretary of State, and for Representative Cowsert's benefit. I think Athens, Clarke County deserves a state senator of our own. I believe that we have shown over decades now that we are a Democratic majority district. We elect Democrats, we work together as Democrats, and I am disgusted and astonished by the way that our rights as voters, as individuals, as citizens of this country have been handled with such a complete and utter lack of disrespect that I have a really hard time even finding the words to express my personal disgust and disdain for this process.
Next, Mr. Sumner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. I'm Ivan Sumner. I'm from Athens, Clarke County. I recently moved here in late December of last year. I moved here because of the vibrant and rich community of this small city, the services that are available here, access to public transportation, access to wholesome, quality food very conveniently. Those are all very important to me personally. And I would be very disturbed to see that Athens, Clarke County, be split up for political reasons. I think every citizen deserves a right to be heard, and every citizen deserves a fair opportunity to elect a representative so that their interests will be heard at all legislative levels. So I urge you to be fair. You know, it's not long or hard to see that roles reverse, especially if a number of people become disenfranchised or feel that they've been disenfranchised. So things come around. And I just want you to consider all those things and be fair. Many politicians I know view it as a game, but it's not a game. People's lives are actually involved, and it's not just a game. So the game isn't something you celebrate because you win. Okay? You want to celebrate because you've done good. That's what I hope you'll do. Thank you. And I appreciate the fact that you gentlemen have come out to hear us and give us an opportunity to give you input. And I pray and hope that you are, in fact, listening. I think you are. Thank you.
We thank you for being here. Brent Allison, and on deck, Jim Godden.
First of all, I want to thank the committee for giving us the chance to present our views. Personally, I've lived in Athens, Clarke County since 2000, and I live in District 113. And as I'm sure you're all aware, Athens, Clarke County has seen its fair share of redistricting in the past decade. We have experienced unsettling trends of being the county that has been pulled apart by the redistricting process rather than having a fair voice to address our unique concerns in Atlanta and even Washington. First, I'll address the obvious. Ours is a quintessential university town with a great deal of property owned and managed by the state and federal governments as opposed to other counties. Not all the university's 30,000 students stay in town, of course, which means that we have our famously transient population that presents its own unique challenges. We also provide the only public transit system in Northeast Georgia, as well as public housing facilities. Moreover, as you know, we are well below the state of Georgia's median household income, which stands at $51,000 at last count. As of the latest census figures from 2008, our median figure in Athens, Clarke County is at $36,254 for a household, 71% of the state median. Given these unique circumstances, the district bounds that our legislative body draws up should conform to our county's boundaries as close as reasonably possible. However, what might not be as obvious, but which also leads me to argue for intact representation of Athens, Clarke County, is our demographics. Our county's racial and ethnic composition literally looks like that of the rest of Georgia. Georgia's white persons who are not Hispanic stands at 57.5% versus 60.9% for Athens, Clarke County. African Americans in ACC make up 25.6% of the population, as they do 30% of the rest of the state. Our Hispanic Latino population is about 1% above that of Georgia's, and our Asian population is about on par. So considering how our county looks like the rest of Georgia, I think having a county that is more representative of the rest of the state can give us a bit more of a balanced voice. And as far as congressional representation is concerned, I'll reiterate some of the concerns that were brought out by that, but I think that it would probably be helpful that as we are an urban district, that we come a little bit further towards other parts of the state that are urban in character. Gwinnett is a possible option in that respect. But basically, I would want to basically voice the same concerns that we've had about Athens, Clarke County's representation. We are very unique in Northeast Georgia. And I think that the best representation of our uniqueness would be representatives who are very much tied to this county and this county alone. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Godden.
My name is Jim Godden. I'm a retired university professor. I've lived here in Athens for 32 years in the same house, actually. I live in that eastern part of Clarke County also that has been put in with parts of at least 4 other very rural counties. My senatorial representative does not live in the county, lives in about 2 counties distant. I'm disappointed. I know this has always been a political process. This whole process of redistricting has been political. But I think you had the opportunity with Governor Perdue setting up the task force to look at this process and made some very definite recommendations that it should be a bipartisan effort because he recognized the problem with politicizing this process. And I think the Republican Party had an opportunity to take the high ground, to demonstrate to the citizenry that it was serious about a rational approach to this process. And I'm sorry that you did not take that the leadership completely disregarded the recommendations of that committee, the recommendations of your own Republican governor, and made this a non-representative committee. I mean, that totally no Democrats on the committee, although I recognize that we do have one member, Representative McKillop, who was recently a Democrat, but has decided to change that nomenclature. But I would urge that, you know, Athens is an urban district. It has little in common with the rural counties that it's been put in with. And it would seem to only to be rational that we should have one elected senator from Clark County, and that we not be put in with these other rural districts with which we have little in common. And I hope that you would take that patently rational approach to drawing the lines so that we have that representation that we deserve.
Thank you. Representative Keith Hurd.
Chairman Lane, Chairman Sebald, members of the Reapportionment Committee, fellow members of the General Assembly, citizens of Athens, Clark County, and surrounding areas. I want to welcome you to our lovely community, Athens, Clark County. I do have a suggestion also that you may consider in future the hour that you have these hearings for those individuals who are working. And so they can have time to get the kids home and still come over and take a part in this process. I would hope that this process will be, there will be fairness, transparency, and equity throughout the process. I do have a few questions that I would like to pose, and you can answer maybe whenever if there is a time for answering some of the questions. But the first question I have is, how will the communities of interest be defined in our neighborhoods? Will the new maps try to preserve municipal and county lines? In other words, will the lines make geographical sense? If not, how will you determine how they are divided? Also, will citizens have an opportunity when we are back in session on August the 15th to be able to ask questions like we do so often in a lot of our committee meetings? And also, will the General Assembly, of course, abide by the principles of fairness, transparency, and also would we also be able to make sure, once again, that citizens still have that same input once we get back to the Capitol on August the 15th? And my last question is, how can citizens participate in the map-making process beyond these hearings? Will the Reapportionment Committee let them participate as the maps are being developed rather than seeing them right before adoption? And once again, thank you for being here, and look forward to working with each one of you during this process on August 15th.
Thank you very much. That's the last person. Representative Hurd was the last person who signed in. I don't know if there's anybody who's arrived late that would like to sign in and speak. Maybe we got another list.
Have you signed in yet? Okay.
She brings it. Thanks. Yeah.
If you haven't signed in and do want to speak, please go back there and get on a list, and they'll bring it up to us, and that way we can call your name to speak.
First be Keith Johnson. And on deck will be Randall Abney.
Gentlemen, I am Reverend Keith T. Johnson. The Reverend Dr. Howard Creasy, the new president of the SCLC, called me and asked me to speak with you this evening about two things that he is very interested in. The first thing that I have to ask, and again, welcome to Athens, where all politics are local. He asked specifically that you select people from the committee and the community to assist you through this process. And he said if you couldn't find anyone any better, that he would suggest that I be that person. Second, he asked that as far as the Section 5.2 of the Civil Rights Act, that we look and adhere currently on throughout the process to make sure that we had a equitable relief. Now, gentlemen, I played football at the University of Georgia, and I know how we treat Georgia Tech after we beat them. If you play for Georgia Tech, I still feel sorry. But we must recognize that that game is played every year. And every year the same team doesn't win. But every year, no matter who wins, we're all Georgians. And tonight, we're all Athenians. Let us come together as one. We recognize our differences. We all came from somewhere else. We all believe something else. And before we go to sleep, we'll all have eaten something else. But in the morning when we go to work, don't we look forward to knowing that everyone that wants to work is going to work? Don't we want to know that if people want to go to work and ride the bus after 6 o'clock in the afternoon, it's available? Don't we want each and every one who goes to the gas station to recognize that $5 a gallon isn't the best we can do? Is there an opportunity for us to move forward recognizing that out of 3,000 counties in America, you're currently in the most abjectly impoverished county now, Athens, Clarke? There are many things that we can do. And it doesn't matter who's sitting in the bus driver's seat when it careens off the road. But if we all pitch in together, it does make a great difference that that bus gets to its destination on time. Together we can. We can choose partisanship or nonpartisanship, or we can choose to be on the right ship and get this job done concurrently. One person would be great, but if that's not possible during this session, let's be as fair as we can. Again, as the great Mississippi tears up part of our sovereign nation, nothing stays forever, remains the ever, and all things will change. Again, on behalf of Reverend Dr. Creasy, good evening and thank you.
Next be Randall Abney. On deck, Dan Matthews.
Thank you. I'm Randall Abney. I'm new to Clarke County, Athens. 3 years ago, we moved from Europe to this community, and we moved here to retire because it was what we believed was one of the great counties of America. I have been a Democrat all my life and served in our last 10 years in Italy as the finance chairman of the Democrats abroad. I came into this county and had a Democratic representative that is now a Republican, which upset me greatly. I believe that our state that voted 47% Democratic in the last presidential election should be represented in our state by our senators and our representatives in some percentage that represents the people that live here, not some way that you can move a line around where you can take Athens and turn it into a pecan pie and give part of us to every Republican county in the district so that we will have no Democratic representatives when you finish. It's very upsetting. Athens is the top city to retire to in the South. There's 4 that all the magazines are picking out right now. And many reasons that people retire to this city, just like I did, is because of the university and because it is a Democratic city instead of being a Republican city. I believe we should have our own senator and 2 representatives so that there is some equity in the state of Georgia, that Republicans and Democrats both have representation and have somebody looking out for them. In our community, we are the base for public housing because the Republican counties around us have no public housing. And we also have the university. These people, including the Latinos here, need representation, and we're not getting it from our Republicans. Fairness, trust, transparency, and equality are principles that we hope that you will use when you redistrict, not partisan politics. Most of my Republican friends are very Christian people, as I am. And I'll leave you with one comment. When we get ready to redistrict, the Christians that are on the redistricting committee should think about what would Jesus do.
Thanks a lot. Dan Matthews. And on deck, Dr. Tim Riley.
Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate you giving me the time. My name is Dan Matthews. I'm the chair of the Oconee County Democratic Committee. I'm sure some of you are more familiar with what's going on at the 113th and the special election out in Oconee County. I'd like to keep Oconee County one district. I'd like to keep Clark County one district. If we can't do that, let's put them together like they used to be. That's just my opinion. I appreciate your time and input, and thank you, everybody, for coming out.
Thank you for coming out. And Dr. Tim Riley.
Good evening. My name's Dr. Tim Riley. I am one of the people that has been what you might say is victim of the redistricting. I was the Democratic Party nominee for state senate from the 47th District of Georgia in 2008 and 2010. Yes, your partisan politics did show up during my personal election attempts, okay? You know what? I can let that go. Let's put our heads together and let's do this the right way. We have an opportunity right here, right now, to do the right thing. The four maps that you have sitting before us are very uniquely drawn, I think. One of them stands out in particular. If we will look at the PSC map, you don't see horrible, tremendous gerrymandering. You see specific, well thought out drawn lines that have nothing to do with race, creed, color, religion, sex, national anything. They are drawn out spot on. Let's do the entire state the same way. Let's start up in the left-hand corner of the state. Let's go by zip codes, and let's go by the population needed for each of the state senate districts, the state rep districts, and the congressional districts. That keeps us in our community base. Had I been elected into the state senate, that's one of the things I would have pushed for. We have to have things that mean something to our specific community. Granted, I love Frank Ginn's area. It was great to campaign up there. Madison County, Oglethorpe County, there's more cows than there are people. Okay? Their needs are going to be different than those needs in Athens, Clark County. We need to address that. That is crucial. But had I been elected, I would have been the senator from part of Jackson County, part of Elbert County, Oglethorpe County, Madison County. It's crazy. You know, it's absolutely crazy to look at somebody that's from Athens to be able to truly get what's going on outside. I worked my butt off to try to find out what was important to those farmers. By the way, they're PO'd at you guys right now for the immigration bill. They've got nobody to farm. So keep that. That's going to come back and haunt people at the ballot box. Number two, you have got to sit down and justify what somebody in rural Georgia has to do with somebody in the dead center of maybe Atlanta or Savannah. You've got to attend to those needs so that the disenfranchisement stops. Thank you for your time, and I wish you the best of luck.
Thanks for being here. And We have another state representative who has arrived from South Georgia, Representative Ellis Black. If you tell them where you represent in South Georgia. He came a long ways to be here. Next be Doug Harmon, and we got some more.
Mr. Chairman, committee, my name is Doug Harmon. I'm from Athens, Georgia. I am the chairman of the Athens Libertarian Party, so I am the most underrepresented person in this room. I guarantee it. I've heard a lot of talk about gerrymandering, heard a lot of talk about districting. Our last speaker had an interesting, very Jeffersonian take on districting. All of that's fine, but as I said, I am the most underrepresented person here, so I appreciate the fact that Athens has 2 senators and I have 3 representatives. Now, do any of them represent me specifically? Absolutely not. But I call all of them all the time. Thank you. I kind of like things the way they are. Have a nice day.
Thank you. And next will be Karen Swin. Did I get that right?
Good evening. I have a couple of points to make. First of all, it's interesting to hear people talk so much about wanting fairness and representation. The reason the last redistricting took place was because when the Democrats were in charge, they put people in Athens in the same district as people in Savannah, which means we had to drive 4 hours just to hold a meeting. So I can assure you that if the Democrats were in charge, gerrymandering would take place, and they would be absolutely ruthless about it, just as they were the last time. So what I would request is, number 1, to use the natural boundaries. Number 2, to remember the state constitution requires that all districts be contiguous. And that means, unlike redistricting under the Democrats, you should not have to drive out of the district to get to any other part of the district. You should be able to get to every part of the district without driving outside of it. But thirdly, I would like to remind everybody that despite the flight to Oconee County to get away from some of the policies in which we have no voice in the local community, 40% of Athenians are in fact conservatives. 40% of Athenians consistently vote conservative. Not everyone works for the University of Georgia in this town, and not everyone's a liberal. So I would also ask that when you do redistricting, you make sure that we also are represented. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Can't stop it, can we? Farley Jones, and on deck Scott Riley, I think. Is that all of them?
Hi, my name is Farley Daniel Jones. What they said, first of all, and what she just said too. I'm a registered Democrat, but when I come from a family of parents whose father was so Republican, he actually, for fact, bought a house that backed to Jane Kidd's father's house because he was Republican governor. And my mother, she was so far left that we couldn't put her on the grid. I find that there's a nice balance in between. First, I want to say is actions and words are pretty much the same thing. And if you represent people, you should tell the truth. Because in history is going to show what you chose to do by what you think we wanted you to do. As a person who was born and raised in downtown Atlanta, who used to ride my tricycle up and down to the Fox Theater when there were homes there, to a retired home health care nurse who traveled in the 10-county area, I can assure you politics were pretty much the last thing anyone was thinking about when they couldn't figure out who their representative was, what their name was, how to get in touch with them, where they were they ever going to show up. Outside of the local salespeople in a rural store, or the mail person who sometimes that's the only contact some of these people had besides the nurses and the hospitals that they visited. I don't think the politics were that much of a point of how they felt they were being treated. Personally, having lived here for 33 years, I see a decrease in the quality of life around here, the decrease in the quality of jobs. I tried twice to work for the University of Georgia, and I couldn't do it. I can't be a part of that bureaucracy because there's too much of one thing and then there's too much of another thing, and there's not kind of a sparsing out of the opinions in relativity to what most people really feel. We don't all eat meat, we don't all eat fish, we don't all eat vegetables. But I sat down with an organization that I worked with at a picnic with Gerald Ford once, and I can tell you, over a plate of fried chicken, he told me that it's kind of indelible in the brain. He looked over and he said, well, redistricting. Bob Dole asked him this question. Bob Dole asked him something about redistricting in the Virginia rural areas in Leesburg or something like that. And he said, leave the log homes alone. He looked down at his plate of chicken and he said, redistricting is sort of like this plate of chicken. You can eat fried chicken, or you can eat steak, or you can forget to pick up the plate in the first place. And he said, you're going to get what you need because that is your area and that's who represents you because they know what's there and what you need on your plate, or are you going to do without? So please use careful consideration what you're doing with the areas and how you're districting or redistricting. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. And unless there's somebody who's signed up, I got Scott Riley. I'm sorry.
Gentlemen, my name is Scott Riley, originally from Columbus, Georgia, now here a student at the University of Georgia, and a member of the Young Democrats. I'd just like to reiterate the request of many others that you set aside partisanship and the political nature of this process when redrawing these lines. And that's really all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that concludes the public hearing, and Senator Seaball is going to close us out. Senator Seaball reminded me that we've advertised this, that it's going to go to 7 o'clock in case someone's going to show up between now and 7 o'clock. So we're going to take about a 10-minute break and keep the floor open in case someone got off work and decided to get here. So we'll have about a 10-minute break.
See, that'll last 20 minutes.
I was ready to go. Break is over.
If we could please have order again, we have.
There you go.
We have additional speakers, and we do not want to take away from their time. We would please come to order so that the other speakers have opportunity to make sure that they get the opportunity to have their voices heard.
And our next speaker will be Ovida Thornton.
Good evening. My name is Ovida Thornton. I'm from Athens, Georgia, and I want to thank you for hosting the town hall meeting here in my hometown. I had to race here from Atlanta to get here, so I was late and was very hesitant about coming up to speak because I was late. But I think it's very important that I do speak because there are a lot of other people who probably wanted to be here, and because of the time, it's not convenient for them. So I was really surprised to see so many people here, but I do think there would even be more if the time was a little bit later or more convenient. The next thing I want to mention.
Somebody please close those doors back there. It's a little distracting. Go ahead. Thank you.
Give a little extra time.
My next thing is, I think that this is so important of the redistricting and drawing lines that maybe the committee could even look at using some technology to get comments. This would be a vibrant conversation on Facebook for a lot of people to have some input that cannot make these meetings. And lastly, I want to say I agree with the young lady who spoke about the lines that were drawn 10 years ago and how crazy they were. Athens connected to Savannah, I totally agree with that. But now that it's in your hands, you have a standard, you can do better than what we did 10 years ago, and that you would draw lines that would be of community interest. Thank you.
Thank you. Has anybody else joined us who would like to address the committee? One more signing in now. If you would, just tell us who you are and where you're from.
My name's Karen Solheim. I've lived in Athens, Clark County since 1973. And I'll be short because I am. My community of interest, and I know this, is within these boundaries of Athens, Clark County. And I was very hesitant to speak to this august body just because I don't know whether what's being said this evening will fall on deaf ears and whether this is just a kind of a show or whether or not the comments mean anything. So that's all I really have to say about this, and I hope the comments do mean something. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for being here. Anybody else? Nobody outside the door. Okay, I think that's all the testimony we're going to have, and I'll turn it over to Senator Seaball for final comments. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to thank the members of the committee. Not every member of the committee lives in this general vicinity. Some have come from quite a long way to make themselves available to what the public had to say this evening. I appreciate all those that showed up tonight and the comments that they made on behalf of what they would like to see the General Assembly do when it comes to doing the redistricting process that we're required to do by law. Would like to also say that individuals can still be part of the process. While there are other hearings throughout the state, you still have the opportunity to submit information to this committee through email, through letters. We have a website. You can go to www.legis.ga.gov, and you can click on the redistricting website, and there you can get information and also be able to submit information. And of course, you have your members in the General Assembly, your House members and your senators that will be part of the special session this year and make that decision on voting on these maps for you to contact with them what your wishes are and to make sure that your comments are heard. The redistricting process will have its special session in late summer. At the end of the summer, the process will be an open process, and it will be a fair process, and it will be one that adheres to the law. So since it is a legislative process and an open process, you still have the opportunity when we go through the legislative process in the special session, when the maps are going through as legal documents, to come, be part of the meetings, and have the opportunity to potentially testify. So with that, I appreciate you coming today, and I appreciate your input, and be safe going home. We're adjourned.